what the music. I'm going to have to come back and record this bit.
Shut up and listen to the songs.
Ahoy hoy, and welcome to Shut Up and Listen to the Songs with me, Ben Wilson, your podcast series for all things listening, a light-hearted look through music appreciation, and your one-stop destination for everything vinyl. We really want to sometimes get into the weeds of this wonderful medium. Sometimes we're going to be idiosyncratic, but yeah, often and always. We're going to be here for the listener so that they can get something new from their vinyl journey, whether they're just starting out or whether they're a long-time collector, like myself. And, even if it's somebody going, well, at least I'm not as glad as that vinyl geek, then that will definitely be worth it. So this is the start of the podcast. I've done the intro episode, and I'm looking to put together this little collection, this little suite of episodes that's going to answer the really basic questions in regards to vinyl. So there's the what, there's the how, there's the when, and first and foremost, I want to start off with the why. Why vinyl? Vinyl? No, sorry. I apologise. I'm never going to use that expression again. But I would just like to explain to somebody, who may be looking into the vinyl world, and they're wondering, well, what's so special about vinyl? What's it going to do for me that I'm not going to get from Spotify or a big CD collection? I've got all the music in the world on my phone at the touch of a button. And so, yes, it can seem illogical that, some people would go to such obsessive degrees in regards to either their equipment or the amount of time they spend collecting records or how much money they spend, which, let's face it, unless you live in a world where it's not a limited resource, you've got to consider these things. So, the list of reasons that I've got on this first episode, some of them I consider to be quite objective and that they're point of facts, and some of them are completely subjective, and also a fair few maybe fall somewhere in between. There may be a germ of something that's true that I'm kind of really emphasizing or kind of making seem bigger than it is. But yeah, for me, the most important reason to listen to vinyl over another music medium is that it makes you listen for pleasure. How busy are we in this modern world? How much rushing around do we do? And quite often we think, well, I've got an opportunity to listen to some music whilst I'm doing this activity, and I'll put the music on in the background. I have my earphones on. I'll be listening whilst I'm traveling. Or you can be listening to music at work, and we all do that, and it's all great. But how often do we prioritize the activity of listening as the primary activity we're doing? So, you can do something else in the background, but you just want to listen first and foremost. And for me, doing that through vinyl is the best way to listen, because you're taking the time out, to stop what else is going on in your life. Put your phone away, think about what record you want to put on, and just sit there and listen to it and enjoy it and relax. Because by putting the record on, you're really prioritizing your listening experience. You'll get to hear new detail in the music. It will reveal really, really wonderful, rich textures of parts in songs which you think you would know inside and out. But I'm still hearing wonderful new bits of songs that I thought, oh, I've never heard that before. It gives you like a new insight into what the musicians, what the artists wanted to convey, and you get a new meaning from the songs by listening to them on vinyl. I would say that beyond learning an instrument, listening to music on vinyl is probably the best way to increase your music appreciation, because it really makes you listen to the songs, and I think that's really, really special. And not only are you listening for pleasure, but the sound quality that you get through vinyl is, in my opinion, superior. And just to touch a little bit on the science of this, in that when digital music was first coming of age in the 80s and 90s, the sound engineers took the music from an analog format, and in digitizing it, you end up with that big wave picture. And if you imagine that wave picture as being, say, across your laptop screen, that is the sound that you can hear, or what's referred to as an audible frequency. And so, we hear the audible frequencies, obviously, but we also feel the non-audible frequencies, either the ones above or below that. And so when people talk about vinyl being rich, warm, rounded, it's actually those non-audible analog frequencies that you're still getting through the vinyl that you're not getting on other music mediums. Which isn't to say that you can't get good sound quality from a digital source, and that they haven't made really significant improvements in the past few years to kind of not mimic, but to enhance that sound quality into what is a more analog sound. But for me, if you want good quality sound, it has to be vinyl. There's just no two ways about it. And also, another great thing about listening to a record, say over a digital playlist, is that it's an active experience. You're actually getting up, you're going to the record collection, and in choosing that record collection, your record collection is saying to you, what do you need to hear? What do you require? Do you need something to get you really active, or do you want something kind of a bit more mellow or downbeat to kind of acknowledge what your mood is and how you're feeling? And all of those are great, and not to say that you can't get wonderful tunes from your streaming service or your digital library, but quite often I find that there's just a tendency to go, oh, that's the nearest thing that my cursor is to, or it's what my screen is on, it's my most played, it's my most frequent. By just taking that small amount of time to go through your collection and think, yes, that's an old friend. I've not heard that in ages. I really want to pull it out. I really want to take the time with the ritual, taking care with the record, putting it on the player. You really can't rush it. And again, it's all part of that slowing down and relaxing and enjoying your experience. It really is quite like nothing else. So I would say that one of the best things about being a record collector or a record player is that experience of putting it on. You have to get up every 20 or 30 minutes to change the side again, which keeps you active and it keeps you involved, and you're an active listener in the process, rather than the music happening and washing over you and you're passively listening. You really are involved in the process. And another reason I'd like to touch on whilst we're looking at these things as to why vinyl is so wonderful is that you also get a brilliant piece of artwork with it as well, and that this can really give a different dimension into the world that the artist wants to take you into. You can really see right there in the physical medium, what they want to convey in a visual sense as well. And obviously, you can see an album cover on a screen or on your phone, but it really doesn't, it's really not the same experience. And then, within that, you've got all of the linear notes, you can read the lyrics easier. There can be all sorts of little curios and wonderful details and absolutely fantastic, beautiful designs in a vinyl package that you're just not going to experience in a non-physical format. Another really great reason to enjoy music on vinyl, and this again is kind of hard to appreciate until you're in the vinyl world, is how much more music there is on vinyl, and that how much of all the historic collections are just unavailable to you if you're listening on a streaming service or haven't been issued on CD. And now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot There's more than enough that we can listen to. However, if you really want to dive deep into your favorite artists, your favorite genres, all the obscure things, all the things that have been either deleted or just weren't digitized, if they're on small independent labels that don't want to go in for the streaming model because of the financial logistics of it, there is such a rich world of music that you won't have heard of, or you won't even know exists, and until you start digging around those crates, looking on the corners of the internet. I've gone on lots of wonderful journeys, and it's taken me to fantastic places with records that I never thought I would go to because of the fact that I listen to music on record. And I like to think that it's not only enhanced my musical appreciation, but yeah, it's also kind of made me a bit more rounded as a person, which does sound really pretentious and sanctimonious. So apologies there. As I said, this is quite a subjective list of reasons why, but I think by listening to different music and broadening your experiences, then yeah, it keeps you more open to the wider world. And in fact, I think in a future episode, I'm going to touch on the concept of being open-eared, which is something that kind of we probably don't realize that we are more or less open to new interesting experiences. Another really great thing about record collecting and record playing is that actually it's quite an accessible hobby, if you want to consider that. I mean, obviously, I consider it essential and like a way of life. But you know, if you did want to get into it, whilst obviously, like with anything these days, you can go for ridiculously expensive systems. You can have ludicrously expensive and elaborate records. And then, you know, take up a huge amount of space, and you'd feel compelled to listen to them all the time. But actually, you don't really need to do that. You can buy really good basic equipment, really good records, either brand new or secondhand. You don't need a vast amount of space to play them in. And, you know, even if you listen to one or two records a day, or, you know, a couple of records a week, you know, you're still getting that wonderful appreciation of that. And so I would say that it's a genuinely accessible pursuit, hobby, pastime, whatever you want to call it. You know, obviously, some people would purchase their records before they've purchased their groceries. I completely empathise with that. You know, I've never met somebody who's gone, oh, do you know what? I bought a sound system, I bought some records, and do you know what? I listened to them a few times and I thought, no, it's not for me. Or they've gone, oh, I've got my 10 favourite records now, so I don't need to buy any more. You know, that just doesn't happen. You know, it can be an absolute wormhole, a rabbit warren of places that a vinyl collection can take you, and you know you can go as deep and as far as you wish. You know, some people have fantastically specialized collections and fantastically unique and bespoke hi-fi setups that are as unique and wonderful as people themselves, and you can, you know, you can have it be part of your identity. um, you know, it really can be as individual as you want. And you know, another really nice part about that collecting experience is that it's really fun to go shopping for records, you know, to meet people in record stores, to discuss with them, to exchange stories, you know, to kind of feel part of a community. And yeah, that's what I'm really hoping to do on this podcast series, is kind of um, get a sense of the love of the music itself, but also everything that goes with it. You know, the people, the stories, the really fun times, and yeah, everything kind of in between. So yeah, that for me is the why of why I think vinyl is so fantastic and so essential as a medium. You know, if you say you loved your films or your TV, you know, you would want a really good screen, a really good DVD player, all of these things. But if music is, you know, your primary culture and your love, then yeah, I think having a system that, you know, could play your digital music, could play lots of different things. There are so many really great music formats out there, but for me, vinyl really sits at the top of the tree. So, in the next episode, we're going to be thinking about what a sound system is and also how you can go about getting a sound system. As I say, as with anything, you can go crazy and bananas, or you can keep it simple and basic, and you'll still get that enjoyment. So yeah, I hope you can join me for the next one, and thanks for listening. Take care.
Shut up and listen to the songs.